If the gun does not fit, you must acquit.
Podcast star and conspiracy theorist Candace Owens is officially trying to get Charlie Kirk's alleged killer acquitted from his murder charges, all based on a theory that's already been debunked. We're going to break this down, plus so much more, on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, our daily show where we take on the craziest stories from across the internet and social media, all from an independent political perspective. Guys, it's time for our, I guess, almost weekly at this point, adventure into Candyland, the wild, wild world of Candace Owens that is sometimes like funny, sometimes baffling. But guys, I have to admit it, she was right about everything. And I was, no, I'm just kidding. April Fools. I put out a tweet that said that, and so many people fell for the bait and were so mad in the comments. And I'm like, check the date, brother. Anyway, we're going to check in with her. And I guess this is unsurprising, but it's still pretty alarming. She's officially trying to get the person who allegedly killed Charlie Kirk, and there's a ton of evidence against him that we will go through. She's officially trying to get Tyler Robinson acquitted and suggesting that he is totally innocent and should walk out of jail. The person who almost certainly, in my opinion, killed Charlie Kirk based on the evidence. Obviously, he's still entitled to due process, his day in court and all that, and he hasn't yet been convicted, but I feel very confident that he will be ultimately convicted by a jury of his peers because there is a lot of evidence against him. Well, Candace doesn't believe any of it. She is twisting and distorting a very bad, very misleading Daily Mail tabloid headline into some get-out-of-jail-free card for the patsy Tyler Robinson, his alleged killer, that she's now suggesting should be acquitted. This is her thumbnail of her video that she just dropped. And the text on it says, "If the gun doesn't fit, you must acquit." Now, the irony there is that it's a callback to O.J. Simpson, who, of course, was acquitted because of this, like, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. But in hindsight, almost certainly did murder. Like, he almost certainly was guilty. He did get off as innocent. We could go into a whole conversation about why, but he was acquitted of the charge, but it's pretty widely believed now that he actually did murder the people. So I'm not sure that's the example that you were searching for, that you wanted to bring up here, because your argument is that, like, he's innocent and you're referencing O.J. Simpson. Anyway, so Candace, of course, circulated this Daily Mail headline that exploded on Tuesday, or maybe it was actually Monday night that it went out. And the Daily Mail headline is, "Bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk did not match rifle allegedly used by suspect Tyler Robinson. New court filing claims." And this blew up. I saw this everywhere, but it's one of those headlines that's like perfectly crafted to be technically true, but incredibly misleading. And we're going to go through it. But Candace, of course, immediately seized on this to suggest that, after all, Tyler Robinson is innocent and he's just a federal patsy in the scheme that she's explained, of course, over these many episodes that she's made like tens of millions of dollars, most likely from, connects everything from Israel to Brigitte Macron's penis to Turning Point USA, to the Trump administration and the FBI and the Utah government and the bees and the Mormons, all of this shadowy cabal that all conspired to kill Charlie Kirk because he might, maybe not, have been going to change his views on Israel or something, as if that would prompt, like, what? As if that would really urge them to do this. That doesn't even make sense on its own face value. But anyway, this is the final straw of the proof, right? The gun didn't match. And it was portrayed as if it conclusively does not match. The bullet was not fired from Tyler Robinson's gun. Of course, if that was true, that would be a huge problem for the prosecution. It would really call into question their entire case. But that is not true. As you will see, it is an inconclusive finding. They weren't able to match it, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't found to definitively not have come from Tyler Robinson's gun. They simply weren't able to reach a conclusion because the bullet was so fragmented, something that actually happens fairly often in ballistic analysis. So, and there's plenty of other evidence, including shell casings, that were matched. So anyway, we'll get to some of the details here, but it's absolutely wild to be taking this one finding referenced in a defense attorney's filing, which of course they're just doing their job, and I don't begrudge defense attorneys for defending people, even people accused of heinous crimes, because they're fulfilling an important role in our criminal justice system, and it's their job to advocate for the client. So they're going to seize on any crumb and try to make it a big thing. So obviously, like, I don't even blame the defense attorneys for doing that, but I do blame the gullible or dishonest Daily Mail reporter who realized they could probably get a ton of clicks and go viral if they spun this up a certain way and didn't provide the context and frame the headline in a certain way, and people would just share it without actually reading the freaking article, because even in the own article, if you get down far enough, it offers context that makes just taking the headline at face value totally misleading, as does actual other, like, better reported articles about the same filing from other outlets, which we will get to. But of course, all the conspiracy crowd seized on this and said, Queen Candace is like, all right, we got to acquit. And it's just like wild on so many. She almost appeared giddy. And I'm about to show you the first clip. I pulled a couple clips from her episode about this. I did watch the whole thing. That's the struggle I go through for y'all. I do watch it often on like double speed or 1.5, but you can't accuse me of just reacting to out of context clips. Whenever I cover Candace, I do sit down and watch the whole thing, and I skip through her like 7 sponsors an episode, or I think this one had 5 sponsors, which we'll get to, because ironically she accused like everyone else of just caring about money, but she never seems to miss an opportunity to cram an insane amount of sponsorships into one podcast episode. Like, there's nothing wrong with putting sponsors, but when you're putting 5 in like an hour of content, that's a bit much. That's kind of crazy, actually. Anyway, I'm going to show you some clips. First, though, do consider subscribing if you haven't yet, if you want more independent takes on media insanity and internet chaos and all of that. And also hit the like button. Let me know what you think of this latest drama. Do you believe that Tyler Robinson is innocent after all and is going to be acquitted? Or is this just more much ado about nothing by people who seem to not really care about facts and just want to go viral? Let me know in the comments, and do consider becoming a channel member if you can to support my content. We're so close to 500 of you signing up. It really helps because I call out the far left and the far right, which I guess Candace technically falls under, though she's all over the place these days. She still calls herself conservative. And I need support from viewers like you to do that. Honestly, it's tough to build up millions of followers unless you're just doing Team Blue or Team Red propaganda, but that bores me and I don't believe in it, so I won't do that. But it does help me if people like you sign up. So hit the join button or the link in the description. You'll unlock early access to full-length ad-free episodes of the Brad versus Everyone podcast, but mostly you'll just donate to support my work. So if any of you are able to sign up, hit that join button. But listen, times are tough. We don't all have 5 sponsors per episode. So you guys, I understand people can't afford it right now. No worries at all. And just thanks for being here. Now let's get into Candace's first clip, where she really does almost appear giddy about the prospect that Tyler Robinson, she thinks, I don't actually believe this is true, but she at least does, may be acquitted and walk a free man. Anyway, let's watch this clip.
All right, you guys, happy Tuesday indeed. I really did have the best day ever yesterday. I mean, foremost, the news broke about the Freemason hit squad in France. Then we wrap up the episode yesterday and the internet explodes because the ATF in the Tyler Robinson case cannot connect the gun to him. Oh, okay, interesting. What does it all mean?
Wrong.
A bunch of people racing. Oh, could you imagine the PR cash they are spending right now? Racing to tell you this is a big nothing burger. Who cares if we can't connect the gun to the bullet fragment? Okay, we care. I care because we were right.
Mm-hmm. She was totally right. I haven't even watched the other episode about the Freemason hit squad or whatever. I'm not gonna get into that today, but boy, Candyland is a wild place, y'all. It really is. And it is funny to me how everything always seems to unfold to perfectly involve all of her ops. Like, whatever scandal, of course, the Charlie Kirk assassination theory that she has just so happens to involve all the groups and countries she was already beefing with. France, Israel. It's just why she could, in another life, she could have been a really entertaining host if she just talked about stuff that didn't matter. But when you actually are like lying on people's name and accusing them falsely of crimes and trying to get seemingly guilty people off the hook for atrocious murders, that's actually really messed up. But if she just did celebrity gossip or whatever and it didn't really matter, it would be riveting and like tea. But this isn't tea. These are people's lives, and these are matters of life and death and heinous crimes. Anyway, though, is it just me, or is it pretty strange how happy she's like, I had the best day ever? Evidence dropped on the internet about how the alleged killer of my BFF I say I care so much about is not guilty. Ha ha ha. Is it just me, or is it like weird to be giddy about that? Even if you believe, I'll get into this in a second, but she totally mischaracterized the finding of the ATF report that was referenced in this court filing. But even if, like, say that there was a piece of evidence that came out that exonerated Tyler Robinson, like, let's step into that supposition, that hypothetical. Why would that make you giddy? Don't you, especially when you're like, she's led the charge to grief police Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, and be like, she seems too happy in this leaked Zoom call, and like, well, this is bad. And to be honest, I mostly think Erica should be left alone, but I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that, like, stepping out with pyrotechnics at TPUSA's celebration of Charlie Kirk's life was a bit much, right? Like, so I would mostly just say leave her alone, but okay, I guess people have a right to an opinion about it, but you're going to grief police her, and yet that you're giddy about the fact that, according to you, Charlie Kirk's real killer is loose and unpunished. Like, you'd think you'd be a little somber about this. No? Or am I crazy? I guess I'm crazy. I don't know. Watching Candace Owens, and then like the comments that you'll get when you push back on her on social media from the Candyland fans, they really do make you think that you're the crazy one. Anyway, another piece of this is she says that they are not able to connect the gun to Tyler Robinson or to him or to the shooting. It's unclear exactly what she's referencing here. That is totally wrong. It is Tyler Robinson's gun that he got from his father. That was clearly established. They're even calling his parents at trial. His DNA is on it, and it was found at the scene of the crime. So to say they can't connect the gun to Tyler Robinson, totally wrong. To say they can't connect the gun to the shooting of Charlie Kirk, even though it was found at the scene of the crime and he references it in the text messages where he essentially confesses, is also wrong. As you will hear, they aren't able to match the bullet. Again, they didn't rule it out. They didn't say it's not a match. They aren't able to reach a conclusion because the bullet is so fragmented. And it's actually not uncommon for ballistic analysis to be inconclusive in a case, but they are able to match a spent shell casing to the gun, as we will get to. So they can connect the gun to Tyler Robinson, and they can connect it to the shooting of Charlie Kirk, just not specifically the bullet fragment. This is the exoneration. He's going to walk free despite all the other evidence, the DNA evidence, the motive, the confessions, everything else. Sure, Jan, this is our criminal investigator of the year, apparently. We don't know, but we know, guys. Remember, it's all with her. That's a funny thing to me, because like I grew up in a time where conservatives and right-wingers were the like, facts don't care about your feelings. And now her whole thing is like, we don't know, no, but we know, or it just feels like a psyop fed slop. Like, it's all feelings and not really facts. And that's such a fascinating reversal for at least a lot of the people who are now Candace fans and once upon a time were drawn to the facts, not feelings camp. Now suddenly they have a different approach. I don't know. Let's look at the second clip. Oh, wait. First, I'll just read from this Fox News article where they explain kind of the reality of this ATF conclusion. Experts debunk Tyler Robinson's ballistic claim. Quote, unable to identify is not the same as ruled out. Tyler Robinson defense argues inconclusive report could be exculpatory. And of course, it's their job to argue that. Like I said, I don't begrudge the defense attorneys from trying to stretch like a small piece of information into some like get out of jail free card for their client. That's literally their job, is to make the best possible defense for their client. Anyway, here's the text from the Fox article. Experts say inconclusive testing doesn't mean the match has been ruled out, and investigators have compiled other evidence in the case, including allegations that Robinson confessed or implied guilt to family and friends. Two law enforcement sources familiar with the investigation later told Fox News that the reason the ATF was unable to match the bullet to the rifle is because when the bullet impacted Charlie Kirk's body, it hit bone and broke on impact. The forensic pathologist pulled fragments out of Kirk's body, not an intact bullet. The sources said it is impossible to do ballistic analysis on a bullet fragment. The testing did positively confirm that the spent shell casing found at the scene matched the suspected murder weapon. Quote, that's a pretty significant piece of evidence for the prosecution and pretty damning for the defense. So there's evidence the gun was fired. It was found at the scene. The shell casing matches. It's like, you see how even if they're not able to make a definitive conclusion on the ballistics, there's lots of other evidence. And again, it's not like it would be a different story if this was a exculpatory claim, like it was definitively, we have the bullet and it wasn't that gun, but it's not that. They're just not able to conclude. But so that's just not a piece of evidence. It's not a exoneration piece of evidence, but it also doesn't advance the prosecution's case. It's essentially just like a null finding because the bullet fragmented. So they're not able to match it the way they sometimes can in a shooting. And apparently that's not uncommon. I'm not a ballistics expert, but I'll tell you, neither is Candace Owens. Now here's a second clip of Candace where she again acts as if this is some get out of jail free card that it is simply not. Let's watch.
Tyler Robinson is a patsy. The feds are just putting this on him, and I do mean the FBI. From JFK to MLK, now to CJK, this is, in my opinion, an undeniable state killing. If the gun does not fit, you must acquit.
If the gun does not fit, you must acquit. No, actually. If there's an inconclusive ballistic match, but you have lots of other evidence, you don't have to acquit someone. There's just one piece of evidence that doesn't advance the case, but all the other evidence does. That's not a reason to acquit someone. So I genuinely don't even understand why she would say that or make the reference to O.J. Simpson. Because again, I really don't think that's the example that you think it is for your case. I mean, is she like a O.J. truther? Does she actually think O.J. was truly innocent? I kind of don't, but I'll admit I'm not super well versed in the case. But it seems to me that his later in life public speakings and book seem to suggest that maybe he did do it. Again, like, I guess I can't say definitively. It's been a long time since I looked at anything about that case, but I'm just not sure that's the example that you want to cite here. And then to say it's undeniably a federal killing of Charlie Kirk is crazy, because actually it's pretty deniable. And I personally, I would deny it in the sense that nothing's impossible, but such an extraordinary claim I would only ever believe or promote or parrot if I had some sort of extraordinary evidence, or actually just maybe we could start with any evidence at all. And I find it very hard to believe that a federal government, particularly one run by the Trump administration and by people who considered Charlie Kirk a dear friend, and he was an ally to them, would kill him and then cover it up. I find that crazy. I really do. And anyway, where's the evidence of this exactly? And what, think about how elaborate that would have to be, right? You would have to ignore the fact that the state and local authorities are also involved at every turn of this investigation. So can you explain why the local police in Utah are in on a cover-up and working with the FBI to frame someone for a killing? Why is the government of Utah doing that? Spencer Cox, the governor there, and the people that he's appointed to lead the state law enforcement and everything are all in on it. Like, the bigger a conspiracy is, the more thousands of people it would require to be in on it and not blow the whistle or not leak anything, the more far-fetched it is and the less willing you should be to believe it. And I feel like in this case, Candace is just ignoring the fact that what she's suggesting is undeniable, not only lacks any real evidence at this point, or even a clear motive, but also would be so elaborate and require such a vast conspiracy as to be pretty implausible at that point, if you think about it practically. Not to say it's impossible. Again, I'm not somebody who thinks that, like, the federal government or the CIA or the FBI never does shady or crazy stuff, but I just think you have to, like, start based on what you can prove, especially as a media commentator or a journalist. That is your job. That is your obligation. Not to start at a crazy claim and then expect other people to disprove it. I mean, again, I'll just run through this quickly, but she's like ignoring all the evidence against this guy to pretend that one inconclusive ballistics finding is somehow exonerating. She's ignoring the fact that he has a very clear motive, which is one of the things that police obviously look for in a murder investigation. He had a transgender lover. He thought Charlie Kirk was like hateful and anti-trans and causing all this backlash. Whether you agree with the characterization or not, that was his motive. So he has a clear motive. DNA proves he was at the scene on the rifle that they found there, that I know she thinks it's all planted and fake, but it's like any evidence that proves the guy's guilt, she's just going to say is fake. She says all the evidence is fake. So if there's a new piece of evidence, she'll just call it fake too. So it becomes impossible to prove his guilt because she says without evidence the text messages are fake. She says the gun was planted without evidence. It's like, how can anyone prove this to her? It's like she's just undeniably convinced and she's just not going to believe. She's just adamantly opposed to the idea that Tyler Robinson could be guilty, and any evidence suggesting that he is, she'll just call fake. There's surveillance video that shows him arriving on campus. There's text messages where he essentially confesses. They're going to be calling his trans lover as a witness, his parents as a witness. It's like, it's pretty crazy. It's like, okay, so her theory is that they got this guy to show up who wanted to kill Charlie Kirk. They got him to confess to people that he killed Charlie Kirk. They got him to show up with a gun and then secretly killed him in some other way. She's not even clear that she believes he was shot, or she suggested that maybe something else was done to him from behind. It's like, and then she thinks he was shot, but the real shooter was someone else, and they just framed him to shoot. Like, well, okay, well, if they were going to set up Tyler Robinson, why wouldn't they just have him shoot? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Anyway, I've rambled enough about Candace today, but I want to play you one final clip that I found deliciously ironic given Candace's own business model. Let's listen to this, where she suggests that everyone else, not her, of course, the one true friend to Charlie Kirk, but his wife, all the people, all his dear friends at Turning Point USA, all the people inside the federal government that considered him friends and political allies, all these people have sold him out for the money. But she, of course, has the purest motives and no profit motive to keep the conspiracies going at all. Anyway, let's watch.
It hurts every day to see the people that Charlie catapulted into the positions that they have today turn on him for money, because that's what we're seeing. We know that's it. They turned on Charlie for money, and some days it felt really lonely. But then I realized that the whole world is actually rooting me on. They're rooting the truth on. They're rooting Tucker Carlson on, and Megyn Kelly.
They're not rooting you on.
The usual thing. They're seeing what they have gone through for simply telling the truth about how much Charlie was going through in the end. And but I think we all need to be reminded of that whatever you're going through, like, his burden was greater, not Charlie's, obviously, but Jesus Christ, his burden was greater. And there is something beautiful about that, to think that we are enjoined in suffering with him, that we are made in God's image. And part of that, of course, is suffering. And she is correct that justice, like vengeance, belongs to the Lord. But truth, it belongs to all of us. And I just cannot overstate to you guys that the second that Charlie was killed, I knew that he was betrayed. And
see, I feel like that final sentence there at the end has gone under discussed and should actually discredit and disqualify her from anyone taking her investigation. I hate to even call it that, but that's what she calls it, I guess. Seriously, the second he was killed, I just knew he was betrayed. So before you knew anything, any facts, any evidence, you already reached a conclusion based solely on a hunch and a feeling, not any logical reason to believe such a thing had actually occurred. And you proudly admit that as if it's some kind of vindication or understandable kind of thing that shows how earnest you are. In fact, it shows how gullible and illogical and unreliable you are as a narrator or an investigator or an analyst, because you just admitted to us that you don't require evidence before lurching towards a conclusion. That's not the hallmark of a good investigator. That's the opposite. And then I do just find it funny how she's like, I just remember the whole world is cheering me on. And it's like, okay, I'm actually not one of these people who believes, and I see a lot of her critics suggest this, Candace's fans are all just bots or anything like that. I don't believe that at all. I think she has millions of earnest fans who believe her and enjoy this. And I think that's a problem we need to dissect. But to act like the whole world is rooting you on, I actually know a lot of people are horrified by what you're doing and find it sick and twisted. And so are you just in a bubble where you don't interact with the criticism? You don't consume anything that fact checks you or debunks you or criticizes you? Or do you just tell yourself they're all bought and paid off? I mean, it's funny to me that she suggests that the people that Charlie put in positions and helped launch their careers then betrayed him for money after his death. I mean, projection much? Charlie was huge to promoting her career and making her the star that she is today. And then, whether she intentionally or knowingly did this or not, because I don't think she's a grifter who's lying. I think she's a crazy person who earnestly believes all of her own BS. That's my read on Candace, at least. But, yeah, so you described yourself, my love, like you betrayed his widow and now openly mock her and share approvingly comedians doing skits embarrassing her. Like I said in my video discussing that, I'm not here to tisk a comedian. I believe in offensive comedy and dark comedy, but I am here to tisk you if you call yourself a true friend of Charlie Kirk and then you egg on and support and amplify comedians brutally mocking his widow and the mother of his children. Actually, that isn't giving good friend to me. And then you yourself are doing exactly what you accuse other people of doing. The projection is unreal. You are betraying Charlie Kirk in effect, if not in intent, by trying to destroy the organization he built. She's literally called it like a godforsaken organization, called on people to withdraw their donations. Many people have because of her. Now, I also think a lot of other people have started donating it to it, so it's probably financially net positive, but still her impact to it has been vastly negative. And you are putting his family and friends through the ringer and accusing them of crimes, and you're actually even trying now to get his likely murderer, at least that's my view, alleged murderer now, but that's my view based on the facts and the evidence, off the hook, all while plugging an insane number of sponsorships into every freaking episode that she's making tons of money from. Like, listen, I understand that you have a podcast and you have a production team, but honestly, you would think that if her true goal was just an investigation, she could probably fund the show and a decent living for herself just based off the AdSense revenue, the built-in YouTube ads, or maybe put in one sponsor. Like if you're truly trying to do a hard-hitting investigative series about your dear friend, why are you taking away from it with like 5 ad breaks? I mean, I want to read you guys from Fortune, Inside the Economics of Candace Owens' Media Empire. They estimate that for shows with more than 100,000 downloads per episode, mid-rolls typically fetch cost per million, so cost per mil actually. So it's money, it's dollars per 1,000 views. So anyway, $25 to $50 is the cost per 1,000 views, which equates to $2,500 to $5,000 per ad. However, at her peak volume of roughly 3.5 million downloads per episode, even a conservative estimate puts a single sponsorship read at $50,000 to $175,000, and she runs multiple sponsors per show. So when she is plugging, if we take the low end number there, she is casually taking a break in the middle of her supposedly hard-hitting investigation, announcing the exoneration of the person charged with the murder of her friend, to read $250,000 worth of ad reads. And yet she has the audacity to accuse everyone else of being motivated by money. I really don't normally go to that as an explanation of behavior, because I think most people are actually more addicted to the fame and the attention than the money. And the money is nice, but I don't think it's a primary motivator for people in the political commentary space. I think it's a secondary motivator, typically. They're typically primarily motivated by narcissism and ego and the feedback and the attention and the views, and the money is a secondary motivator. But in this case, it's so glaring, and yet she has the audacity to accuse everyone else. And I even have people being like, are you getting paid to criticize Candace? No, I'm getting paid in the sense that I make money when people watch my YouTube videos, but I'm not getting paid by any outside source. I'm not even big enough to put sponsors in it like Candace. So anyway, guys, I guess we'll leave it there. That's been our weekly dive into Candyland. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know what you think of this latest saga. Have you seen it buzzing online? Did you initially fall for that Daily Mail headline? A lot of people did, and I blame the commentators and pundits who are supposed to like bring people back and use their expertise and knowledge to be like, wait, here's what this actually means, who instead just jump full throttle to say, oh, look, we're right, conspiracy proven. I blame them more so than people who don't understand these things or know how this works and just believe what they read at face value. Anyway, y'all will have to let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit the like button and do consider becoming a channel member to support my work and unlock early access to ad-free episodes. Hit the join button or the link in the description. And with that, guys, we'll be back with more Brad versus Everyone real soon.